The Front Row Back Row podcast is a show where two grad school buddies discuss physical therapy entrepreneurship. I helped guide a company to an 8-figure exit, and I'm now starting my own mobile company. Brian grew his mobile practice to 4 clinics, and he's now doing $1 million in revenue. Join us as we help you grow your own business. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell. I am the owner of Simplify Motion Physical Therapy in Phoenix, Arizona. And with me, as always, is Dr. Brian Wolf, owner of Evolution PT and Fitness in Connecticut and Long Island. And together we are the co-owners of Physiogrowth. Physiogrowth is the coaching company that we run, and that's what presents and brings you this podcast. So I was figuring when we were talking in the pre-show, what do we name ourselves now? Like now we're all fancy and stuff. I actually started posting some stuff on the socials here in the last month. So I figured I'd intro with our new titles and then completely bomb it with talking too much.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, don't worry. Randomly, I'll throw in an advertisement in the middle of this thing and make Owen laugh. That's my goal with everybody behind the curtains. Is if we do any of these reads that I nail it randomly and make Owen laugh. That's my goal.
I feel like we're gonna have a lot of fun with how we transition out of it. Like
100%.
you'll go interrupt me to say something, and I'll be like, "Oh, he has something that he wants to add to this episode," and then
exactly.
and
That's
what
my
you
goal.
need and stuff.
Exactly. I can't wait.
So this is our beginning ad read. Look at our mentorship group. It's on our link in bio and stuff.
Exactly. Versus the school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group. We're working on it.
Ooh,
we know.
He's been practicing, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly.
All right. So the topic of today, we are going to talk about we've done all this work, right? We've got our SEO a little bit. We spent some money there, talked to somebody who knows what they're doing. Maybe now we've learned really how to dial in a Facebook ad campaign. And now we're starting to put some money towards some advertising and we get all these leads, right? And hopefully you've also really focused on word of mouth. You're getting some people who say, hey, my friend said you might be able to help my shoulder, right? So we have all these people coming to us. Awesome job. Hot leads is what we would call this, right? Versus cold leads, where it's, I know some person who has, I don't know, a shoulder or something, right? Like that could be anybody, right? Hot lead is someone who calls you and says, I'm in pain, I want it fixed, and you're the person I'm talking to. Now, this happened to me. Closing that client is a skill you have to get good at and that you have to get through with reps. And thankfully, we have somebody who's a co-host of this podcast who has a lot of reps when it comes to closing people for healthcare and physical therapy. So that's going to be the topic of today's podcast. Hopefully we can get some of your wisdom on how to take a hot lead to a closed client.
Nice. And I think it's one of those things where the more you practice it, the better it gets, right? To Owen's point, it's just reps when you do it. And also having the sting of somebody like being like, oh man, I got somebody, I can't wait. Right. Like I say this in one of our business coaching models. I go, this is that's on our physio group or on a group in school. The person is not closed until the money's in your bank account, right? Like it's not until those little digits are like that money goes over. So from that perspective, there's still a lead until they pay you. Even if you do like discovery visits and time invested, like that is a lead. And so you have to have that same kind of almost anxiety around it until you get them closed. So in this particular case, I talked to Owen. One of the big things that I would never do when doing this stuff, don't do anything over email. Don't do anything over text. It's all got to be in person or in phone. And I know people are like, well, like now all of a sudden it's going to cost me more money. If you do it via text and you do it via email only, I promise you your conversion rate is going to plummet comparatively. So I've made this mistake over and over and over again. And I've done it even when I'm like, oh, let me try and like work on somebody and I'll just send them a quick email. It almost always, it's just easier to say no to somebody. Like that's just that simple, right? Like I had somebody the other day, and this is going to sound kind of messed up, but I had somebody the other day who was like, what did I even sign up for? That means I did it right. That's what that means, right? Like if someone says, I don't even know what I signed up for, being like, this is what you signed up for. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And like, it's not about what they signed up for. They're signing because they have a goal in mind and you can complete it. So
you have to transfer that conviction of like, I can fix your stuff
exactly.
to them. right?
Exactly.
So he believed you some way. He believed that
Exactly.
you could solve his problem. It might have been a little fuzzy on the details, but that's,
Yes.
I mean, right there, that shows that you've done this, right? And
Exactly.
out of nowhere, you're like, I don't know. Um,
Exactly.
so I think, yeah, that's
A-
awesome.
yeah, and so the reality is when someone is doing this like with Owen, it's like, hey, like I think there's another aspect, and I think like recognize where people are in their buying process. I'll give you a great example. Right now, I like say I'm going to go buy an item, and let's think about anything, right? I'll give you a great example of something I just wanted to buy. I don't know why I was into this thing, but particularly like I've been doing a lot more cooking lately for my kids and for my wife, like at dinner, like doing more cooking. I know. Owen's surprised. It's true,
Ooh.
right? So I've been doing more cooking, but like I always shied away because I friggin' hate chopping. So one of the things I saw online was I saw online these really cool knives that kind of look like something out of Vikings. That's like that you use these knives. I wasn't super like interested in the knives off the bat. But of course, like, what does the Facebook algorithm do, Owen? Right? It starts like to target
Mhm.
me, right? So I
Yep.
must have looked at one thing, and all of a sudden, I'm getting like, all these small business ads from knife companies and blah blah to like get like,
Mhm.
culinary knives that look really really cool.
Yeah.
So what did that do? Suddenly, it got me like thinking and doing something along those lines. And I see the ads. Those products, they're trying to push me into going and buying those ads. But what did I do? I went on Amazon, started tinkering around with it, and then I made my own decision. So by doing that, I made my own decision, bought the knives, and now I have them. And by the way, I love them. I'm like, my kids are going, can we get cantaloupe? Can we all these chopping fruits? And I'm like, yep, let's get all the chopping fruits, right? Like I'm all about it. So the reality
You're
is
the master of the mise en place.
exactly right. Exactly. I love it. Like my wife's nervous. She's like, "What are you doing wielding these knives around?" I'm like, "They're the coolest." So the reason I tell you that story is because I was at a point where like I didn't even know how into the market I was for that service, right? Or that
Mm,
product. But then what happened was because no one reached out to me, because no one followed up with me, because no one really did anything, I was kind of left to make my own decision, right? Whereas I guarantee you, almost guarantee you, if anybody from those places called me and was like, "Hey, we saw you checking out those knives. Like, tell me a little about what's going on. Tell me about what's like what are you trying to cook? Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I like doing this stuff, or I like doing that stuff." I guarantee you, I probably would have spent 3 times more money because I would just like the company and the reputation that they were doing, what they were trying to do, and the product, and like they would have had an ability to pitch me their product, right? And obviously that's a different skill. They're trying to push that, but again, like that's how we got to look at it. Physical therapy. From the second that person clicks on your website and says, "I have this problem," they talk to you. You got to close them because they are the hottest they are possibly going to be right there and then. The there's a difference in the scale. If you're thinking about a 1 to 10 scale or 0 to 10 scales like an NPS score,
mhm.
they're a 8, 9, 10 on that NPS scale of hotness for converting with you the second they get on the phone with you.
Yeah.
Every second after they're off the phone, they're cooling off.
Well, you got to think they take the time to look for you, click on your stuff, find your contact form, and then
Yes.
say, "Here's all my information," knowing that that is going to generate a contact of some way. You want that contact to be effective,
Yeah.
right? At the right time to hit them where they're saying, "Oh, okay, I can make that decision now. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm ready for it."
And I'm not saying be like a high pressure salesman in the
No,
sense of like get them pissed off or they never want to come see you again. You don't want to do that, right?
especially
But it,
not in PT or any
yeah,
healthcare.
but I think it's very fair to put quite a bit of pressure on somebody. I think it's
Mhm.
fair to be like I'll give you a great example is one of the lines I think gets a lot of people is let me think about it and I'll get back to you. I'm really interested. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And let's
Mhm.
all think about this properly, guys. Are we really sitting in a rocking chair somewhere, be like, let me get a cup of tea. Let me think about this properly. Right? No, that's not how it freaking works. It's not right. Like, it's not like, is my shoulder really, this is what I need? No, that's not how it works. Like, what's going to happen is you're going to reach overhead into a cabinet randomly with your shoulder pain. It's going to be like, fuck, it hurts. And you're going to be like, oh man, I never called Owen. In that split second, you're going to make the decision. By the way, that's a great, objective overcome. So someone's got an objection, well, like, let me think about it and be like, hey, I told me, like, what are you thinking about? Like, what questions do you have? And a lot of times when people are like, well, I just got to think about it a little more, be like, listen, here's the reality of the situation. I know you're saying you got to think about it, but I'm the guy who's got the questions for all the answers to all the questions you're going to have. So why don't we have this conversation now? Because you're making this decision, and so it's very rare that we sit down and sit in a rocking chair and make the decision right like that. Usually, what's going to happen is like, again, if it's a shoulder problem, like or like a back problem, you're going to reach down to tie your shoes and be like, "Oh crap, my back hurts," and at split second, you're going to make a decision. So why don't we
And
talk about it now?
that is an excellent objection to overcome. That is something that you can easily learn if you
Yes,
become
yeah, exactly.
one of our
100%.
members in the mentorship group.
Exactly.
So,
I have a whole training on this.
there you go. And well, it's seriously, and we did a Q&A with someone. We had a few people in it last week, or earlier this week, sorry,
Yeah.
where there was a lot of time that we were able to sit, talk. Especially right now, we don't have 100, 300 people in this thing, so you can get your questions answered. If you're someone who looks at it and says, I just don't know what strategy I'm gonna feel comfortable doing that helps me get through to this person, ask us. The Q and
Yeah.
A's are $12 a month, and for that you get a weekly Q&A with me and Brian. We are on a Zoom call for an hour, and
Yeah.
come in, talk to us, and we'll hopefully be able to help you. And then obviously we have a whole other set of stuff, but that is something that we find we're trying to provide as much possible value as we can right now. So visit our school.com/physiogrowth dash mentorship group. I
That's
screwed
it.
it up.
That's
Whatever.
it.
Just look at our link. Look at our link in
How
bio
you
or
can tell
whatever.
so Owen's not actually talk about acting like a back row student. He is totally not reading off a read. He's just freestyling right now.
I mean,
He's just like doing it. It's great. It's great. And actually,
sometimes
full
analysis paralysis, Brian.
yeah, exactly. Full transparency. What we were talking about this person too was we were talking about hiring, right? And Owen had some really good insight on the hiring process. Where like it actually is my wife to give you an idea who we're chatting with, and I was like, this is really good
Mhm.
advice that she was getting, and she's a small business owner who's like building a practice that is really thriving, and like those processes, I was like, this is smart. This is really good ideas for how this works. So again, definitely visit our group, but no, I mean that's kind of the objection overcome in closing that client is I think whenever I think about it, whenever I have them on the phone, I'm like, this is how is this going to get? I got to close them now. And I'll tell you a great example of like how I do it is, even with a team, I asked this guy that I was with last week, and he has back pain. He was like, I want to come in and work with you guys. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, did you reach out to them or blah, blah? And they said no. And so I gave the contact information to my front desk, and he just got lost in the shuffle. No one called him. I said, anybody call you last week? And he was like, no, no one called me. I go, I'll tell you what, let's just book you right now. I'll just book you on the schedule right now. I took out my phone. That's another thing to talk about. We have a guest coming who actually we'll chat about EMR, but like to have an EMR that you actually can access on your phone is really important, because if I can access that schedule, that's something that's really important, because I looked it up, and I go, how's Tuesday? Tuesday works? Yep. How's this time? Yep. Works. Boom. You're in. I go, I'll have them call you just to verify your insurance stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I just closed them, and I was like, now we're good. Right. And, again, based off my metrics, he's technically not closed because he's got to like walk in the door and pay and blah, blah,
Yeah.
and stuff. Like there is something for that too. Like you could schedule somebody and then they can no show, or you schedule somebody and they don't follow up. Right. So that is tough. That's tough to deal with. But
And
in this case, that's closed.
the thing I'm getting is what they call speed to lead, right? Like
Speed to lead.
how fast you can get to somebody, how much you can follow up with them, right? And how much, I mean, you got to be able to talk with them, right? You can't do the high pressurey, you know, wordplay stuff. You have to actually understand, okay, what's this person really, why are they calling me, right? And what is some of the stuff that's holding them back from, walking in my door right now? I think that's an interesting kind of psychological thing that you have to be very comfortable with, moving in and out seamlessly, and then having the technology, like Brian said, to be able to kind of just schedule and boom. I mean, I use Google Calendar for one man cash pay place, but
Yeah.
as you get bigger, as you get to Brian's size, you're going to be able to have a lot more technology that can do that stuff quicker. So I think that the getting them, you have their interest, right? And then you have to close them. But I think you said something interesting there. If you made an appointment but it's not closed,
Yeah.
and then okay, so let's just assume not a jerk, right? He's going to show up when he says he was. You send a reminder text, whatever. He says okay, fine. But let's say like somebody has a financial, like, you're cool, but I don't know, like that dreaded like first eval, you're awesome, but that's still a lot, right? Now in my head, I'm thinking I didn't provide enough value in that visit, right? Maybe that's something that's limiting, but sometimes it's sheerly just they don't have, you know $2,000 to get a, 14, 15 session recommended, whatever it is that we think they need with a plan of care. So like, how do you handle like that sort of those like, that I don't have enough money, or I got to ask my wife, or, oh, that type of stuff.
So it's really good because it's fresh in my mind because I literally just did this training in physio in our school group. But in terms of what I would do in that scenario, right? There's three scenarios when someone's walking the door and they're doing an evaluation. One they're going to pay for it, right? Like they have to, like they took the service now, right? So you at least have that visit. But what Owen's asking is, how do you get them to continue with the plan of care?
Yeah.
Now, on the insurance side, this is where it's funny. We talked about this. I was talking about this with somebody who's doing a cash-based practice, but her LTV of her clients is about $500, meaning like the people fall off after 3 visits. So the one thing that's really great about insurance, I know it's tough on the cash-based side. So what's nice on the other side of insurance is your LTV doubles on that front. And like now you can actually scale business. So that's where the lucrativeness of insurance is versus cash based. So again, I'm a big believer in that, and having an insurance based practice that's cash based services. I think the hybrid model is the best model in my opinion. But anyway,
I agree.
Yeah, cash based in general, it being that place to start is. I think there's 3 ways to do this. One is you want to establish a finite amount of money the person's going to have to spend. That's important because very typical, like if you're competing with someone like me in the insurance game, I can go forever. And if they got a $40 copay, a lot of people, it's kind of like, it's almost like a quote unquote death by a million cuts. Like they're only going to quit with me after they've hit a number that they're like not comfortable with anymore with that $40. Yeah. So, and that cash flow really isn't going to be a problem for them. What you're looking to do, and most people, like to give you an idea, most people, when you're saying, hey, I just don't have the money right now, realize that if my TV fell off my wall in my place right now, I'm going to be pissed about it, but I'm probably going to have the money that I can go and I can fork over and buy a new TV, right? And that's going to be somewhere between $500 and $1,000, right? So the reality of that situation is, in physical therapy, that just means, to your point, what Owen just said is, I didn't show enough value in this visit to do that. So there's a couple different ways this conversation can go. One is that visit that shouldn't happen if you've done the steps of lead nurturing to close the person properly before they walk in. So what should happen is in that visit, they shouldn't be super surprised. We talk about a discovery visit. That's where a discovery visit can slow down that process. So there's 2 different angles. So say this happens on the day of the appointment, or say this happens on the discovery visit. It means the call from the phone to the actual like appointment was a little too quick, and if the discovery visit means you weren't clear enough on what was going to be the cost for the person. So in this scenario, say they're like, I just don't have the money for it. What that means is being like, look, here's the deal. I think it's gonna take me about 10 visits to fix this, and I'm throwing out arbitrary numbers, right? For typical, say it's gonna take about 10 visits to fix this at $150. That means probably about $1,500 a bit, like about $1,500 total. There's 3 different things we can do. You can pay as you go, right? We can go like that, and it's $150 a pop, right? Or you can pay for the whole thing up front and give you 10% off, which is basically like you get 1 session for free, right? And if you give them those 2 options, and if they really buck and are like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure, which by the way, 90% of people, 95% of people shouldn't. They'll take one of the 2 options. In fact, my experience is more than 50% will actually take the bulk pay option. They'll just pay it, right? And then take the discount. So it's $1,350 for that, which is great. And then what ends up happening is, if they can't do either one, you can say, all right, what I can do is I can put you on a payment plan. We can just do it as we go and put a payment plan. I still have people on payment plans that are on our visits. Like, unlike we keep track of it. And those are awesome. And so you can do it too. And by the way, you can also upcharge some of the payment plan. You can put an interest on it. And I found that if you put interest on it, people pay those balances faster than when they are. I've never had anybody not finish off paying their balance before the payment plan was up, because they want to get out of the interest rate. So that's how I would do it.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, again, as you start learning the skills of, okay, not only do I need to help this guy's shoulder or knee or whatever, but also saying, okay, when I say this is what a person will think about financially, right? Because our patients are thinking about that all the time. They're not just thinking about what's my external rotation range of motion, right? So it's as you get seasoned in business, these are going to be things that I think will start coming naturally, right? And the key is, you can get there faster by learning it from someone like Brian, right? And that's going to be something that, instead of getting burned by 100 people and then eventually learning it, you can just wait for it.
Yeah.
Go to our mentorship group. And,
Well, I think too, on top of that, Owen, like, it's funny because we were talking about that too. I think that, when you think about I've said this too in one of the trainings. I was like, if you think about what you were just talking to, a lot of times I'll say to people as I go, give me 3 visits. If you see no improvement in 3 visits, I'll give you your money back.
yeah,
Guarantees like that are awesome, right?
yeah,
Then I've had more people be like, all right, let's do it. And then what happens is now they're working with you, they like you, there's like less pressure on the situation, right? Like that's a really good way to do it. And so, I think from the other last kind of process here with the Facebook leads and Googles and that kind of process, people are afraid of that failure. But if you think about it, if I pay $50 a day, but I land that client at $13.50, I just finance the whole thing. So like that's the key is really, again, for that's $50 a day of advertising. I never spent that much money when I first started. Right. So that's kind of the idea behind like, how to make sure that you're covering your advertising is just got to get one person in the month and then everybody else is gravy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's it. And, looking at it like if you want to basically say, what I'm putting in, I'm making a multiple on. Right. And looking at it's very emotionally, it's painful. I can tell you right now, it's painful to just see 10, 15, $20 go out of your bank account every day without anything to show for it. But then it all is worth it at the end when you get the one person. So
100%. And Owen, if you want to take your PT practice to the next level, at PhysioGrowth, we guide physical therapists to financial success and patient growth. Visit school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group and grow your future today.
That wasn't even a transition. You just stopped and said, "And Owen."
I got him. That's what I wanted.
All right.
You're all welcome, everybody.
Yeah. The best and worst idea we had was, hey, we should promote our group more in our podcast. Right? All right. And with that, we are finishing for today. All right, my friend. Have a great Thursday.
You too, man. See ya.
Yeah.